So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
Good evening. I'm Coulter Wonkite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
You know I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. Miseducation and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. My name is Al Graham, and we are coming to you live here at lifestyleradio.net. And we'd like to thank you for tuning in to tonight's program. Tonight, my joint host, Debbie Stutlz-Giffin, has brought us a guest who many will know as a person who educates and assists patients, which has really gotten into the news lately. But first, I'm going to have a bit of a talk with Deb. Hi, Deb. How are you going? How's things going?
Not too bad, Al. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. Can't complain. I got a test tomorrow, for health reasons. But other than that, life goes on.
Well, I hope that goes well for you.
Yes. So I predict things will go well. All right, Deb. Well, for our news item tonight, we see that, as you know, cannabis has been legalized for a week now, full week. And
everything's still standing and...
Yeah.
We haven't gone to hell in the handbasket.
Sky hasn't fallen in. I haven't heard about the streets piling up car accidents or anything like that.
No rash of crowding at the local ERs due to toxic reactions.
No. The only lineups I'm seeing is there was at stores, but now not anymore because of the fact that the supply is just gone. So, But we also saw over the last week was the Conservative Party and their leader, Andrew Scheer, come out and he talked about, what he thought about cannabis legalization and said that, they would look at some things if they got elected and make some possible changes.
I don't see that as a positive thing, personally.
No, either do I. I don't see that as a positive thing whatsoever. Like, some of the things that they've talked about, they're against the home growing, they're against the age. There's other things that I just can't come off the top of my head that they're against, which leaves me really concerned because we know the Conservative Party has had a history of not wanting people to be able to grow at home. And they did that to patients. And if they're doing that to patients, then I have a concern that they would be willing to do that to just recreational users as well.
Absolutely. If they're willing to strike that fear into the hearts of critically and chronically ill Canadians by threatening to remove all of the grow permits and denying us access to our life-saving medicine, I personally don't think they'd give a rat's ass when it came to pulling 4 plants from recreational patients. I think they'd do that in a heartbeat and continue to sleep very well at night.
Yeah. Now, what about, the edibles? They're not legal yet. They're looking at, next year, a year from now, 2019. So I'm sure that Trudeau will be pushing that as, part of the election thing, bringing in edibles into the cannabis issue. We don't even know where the Conservatives would even stand on that. Like, would they even be available?
Frankly, I can't see it, Al, because they've been even more paternalistic than the Liberal Party as far as looking at legalization or trying to remotely loosen anything at all.
Yeah.
They get into such a hysteria when people mention anything about cannabis that I don't see that going well at all.
Yeah.
I could see edibles being disallowed. I could see concentrates being disallowed because, God forbid, there might be a higher THC content in it, and somebody might get a little bit higher than they would have from something else in their minds.
That's right.
They just don't get cannabis, and they don't understand how it acts within people and truly what to expect from it. They're just running on fear and hysteria.
Yeah, they're against the 18. They've talked about wanting to be 21, so you can see something like that being moved on. Not only the fact that if they're going to eliminate possibility, they haven't said this, but we're looking at that they would eliminate the growing. That also would eliminate the unlimited storage.
Absolutely, and potentially capping percentage of THC in bud form.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And,
so they certainly could leave it in a legalized recreational market while wreaking havoc at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Because certainly legalization isn't ideal as it stands, but almost pains me to admit it is a step forward. Absolutely. Right. And it's certainly the conversations in the spin-off are huge. I jokingly said to hubby the other day, it's not been that long ago since when I heard the word marijuana or cannabis coming from the TV, I'd run to hear what the big buzz was. But now it's so commonplace that half the time I feel like running in the other direction because everything is cannabis every time you turn around.
Oh, that, especially that week leading up to the 17th. It was just constant all the time. And
and the week preceding it, it's been constant all the time. I've had reporters reaching out left and right to find contacts to be able to run with stories and have information, and it's been nonstop and almost exhausting.
Yeah, it has been. It was nice to see some coverage. It was, but and not all of it. People are looking for coverage, and it's not always positive coverage as well.
Absolutely.
There are some people that do like to throw out, some of those lines and stories that just aren't true. They've been told over the years. So.
Reefer madness still runs rampant, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does. It's it's brutal, but we'll get through it. Others have, in other situations. So, all right. Well, Deb, what do you think? Time to bring in our guest?
Absolutely.
Okay, it's time to welcome our guest, who described as a person who educates and assists patients, and has been in the news lately, and actually missed a previous show because of that, but we'd like to welcome finally Heidi Chartrand to the Pace Radio Show. Hello, Heidi. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, we appreciate you coming on and talking to our listeners, and I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Me as well.
Yes. Okay, Heidi, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the reins over to Deb, let her get started. Let everybody know what's going on down there on the East Coast. Deb gets on the program, every few weeks, and fills us in what's going on. So.
Try my best for sure, and right. Heidi certainly has lots to fill us in on this evening, I'm sure. When we last spoke on the show, actually, I was thinking about this just before we kicked things off. You were in a location just outside of the city and starting to experience some difficulties with a landlord.
Yes.
So if you'd like to just briefly describe how you've moved on from there and expanded, and then we'll bring things forward really quickly into what's happened in August and September and this month with you and both of your dispensaries?
All right. So basically, we started out at a location in Lower Sackville, Nova Scotia, and we were placed beside a veterinary clinic, and they weren't overly fond of natural ways of healing, we'll say. So before we even had our doors open, they were already filing complaints with the landlord and whatnot about smell and everything. So we were only able to stay there for about a month and a half before we got not so nicely kicked out. The landlord broke into our store, changed the locks on the door, held our things hostage. And then we had an angel send us a link for a place over in Dartmouth. So we ended up opening up in Dartmouth, and things have been great over there with that landlord and those neighbors. So about a year after that, we opened up our second location in Greenwood. And that location is no longer open, unfortunately, but our Dartmouth store is open, just with a bit of a twist now.
Yes, unfortunately, the more recent chain of events have changed a lot in your world, for sure.
Yeah, it's been really sad and hard times lately.
For our listeners, Heidi's 2 locations actually have been raided, one in August and one in September, and we'll get into the details of that shortly. But Heidi's been very high profile in the media, in front of politicians, and at every possible avenue, venue, what have you, to have her voice and ultimately the voice of patients heard as per the need of dispensaries and how essential they are here in Nova Scotia. So certainly I was somewhat shocked to hear the news in August of the dispensary in Dartmouth being raided. And there was certainly a really overwhelming response from the patient community to that raid as well. I'll get you, yeah, and I'll get you to speak about describe the events of the raid, the community support, and as well the video that went on YouTube as showing some of the events outside of the dispensary after the police had left with medicine.
Yeah, so the day that we got raided in Dartmouth was August 7th, and that was a Tuesday, I believe. It was right before Peace East weekend, and we were out getting a bunch of groceries to take up to Peace East, and I got the text message I never wanted to get from any of my staff or volunteers ever, and that was RAID, all in capital letters. So I called, hoping that they may still be able to answer, and they were, and I was notified at that point that we had some unwelcome visitors in the store. So from there, I immediately hung up the phone. I put out the word to our association, the Nova Scotia Medicinal Association of Cannabis Dispensaries, and I told them all, I said, look, you guys, my store is getting raided right now. If you can do anything to help, please do. And thank goodness that we have such an amazing team of players available, and within minutes, I had some of the other stores that are part of the association, the owners up at my store filming the police and stuff. So it was perfect because my staff and volunteer that were there, they were no longer allowed to access their phones or anything. So we wouldn't have been able to hold the police accountable for what had taken place. So in the meantime, I also put the word out on social media that we were being raided. So there were several patients who actually showed up to film the police as well. Now, in doing so, the police were generally nice at the time when they came in. They did ask to make sure there was no patients in the store while they were doing the raid, because we do offer other services there like massage and acupuncture as well. But when they were leaving, there was one of our cancer patients who was standing out filming them, and they tried to, I don't know if it was intentional, it certainly seemed like it was, but they tried to run her over with a vehicle. And we have a video posted on our page there, and when you watch that video, you can see that the woman is a little bit frustrated with the fact that these police just stole some of her medicine as well as tried to run her over. And she's seen placing her hand on the vehicle, not with much force, but then you see the cops jump out and literally try to attack this woman. And then you see another one of our amazing patients who's actually visibly disabled herself, and you see her do this crazy flying squirrel monkey jump in front of our older patient to protect her from the police. So it's really quite the video to watch, and in the video the entire time you can hear some of the other store owners citing sections of the criminal code at these police officers, asking them to stand down from what they're doing at the time because it's wrong, and it's been proven in court that it's wrong. So that video was really quite moving and emotional, especially for me, seeing the other store, the other store owners as well as the patients standing up and being so bold right in the face of the police. Excuse me, sorry.
Certainly quite an amazing watch for anybody who has a minute to go on and see it. And I noticed, and it escapes me at the moment because, as Al had said at the top of the hour, there have just been so many news stories about everything that's been going on here. I do recall seeing a clip of that actually on one of the Supper Time News articles about something that had been going on here on the East Coast recently.
Yes, they did air a clip of it. I believe it might have even been CBC when they aired the patient stories. I could be wrong about that. But another thing that I found quite interesting in that video is that as the police are driving away, you can see that they're driving. They don't use their signal lights, and they have an expired plate on their vehicle. So it's interesting to me that they can be out enforcing laws while breaking them themselves at the exact same time.
Yeah, it's amazing what they can get away with and we can't.
Definitely.
For sure. And for our listeners, the lady that Heidi's been talking about is a 64-year-old cancer patient, a very small lady, soft-spoken, the kindest individual I believe you'd want to meet. And it was quite something to watch the video and see her being challenged by the cops. And
it was a very emotional video for sure.
Where is this video again, Heidi?
It's posted on our Higher Living Facebook page for our Dartmouth location, so 902 Higher Living.
Okay, all right. Okay, because I see you got 2 Facebook pages, so I'll just double check them. Okay. Yeah, this sounds like a lady who, is a person you don't want to mess with. Well, you're taking her medicine away from her. She's probably a really nice lady.
The thing is her name is Giselle. She was never an activist, and it just so happened that a couple weeks before the raid, the Nova Scotia Medicinal Association of Cannabis Dispensaries hosted a town hall meeting, and we invited all of local law enforcement, the politicians, anybody and everybody in medical associations to come and attend this meeting, and none showed up. But Giselle was one of our speakers there, where she told her story on how she got into using cannabis, why she uses it, and that was actually the beginning of her activist career, we'll call it, because since then she has become very passionate about this issue and has spoken out several times about it now because of the actions of what the government has done trying to force her to become a criminal.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, a media outlet contacted me earlier in the week looking for a senior to speak about cannabis use in seniors, and she gladly picked up that torch and ran with it. And she's been so busy talking to politicians and trying to change minds. It's been quite something to watch. And she keeps saying, I never knew I had it in me.
Those are people who I sort of call accidental advocates, because it wasn't their plan, but something all of a sudden transpired them, whether it was a young child or an incident like this lady here.
She's a little feisty French woman, and she got mad, and they never should have made her mad, because now they're going to have a hard time getting her to shut up.
Kind of like you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we are like activist besties now, so, and I kind of did pull her into it, so, yeah, like me.
Because she certainly was quick to pick up the torch and run to the meeting that was held in Dartmouth, I believe.
Party. Yep.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just been wonderful to see her rising to the occasion, and so many other people too. I'm seeing more and more people becoming outspoken, willing to show their faces at protests, talk to politicians because of what's gone on with you, and you're being rated so close to legalization happening and the impact of that for patients. Because certainly there was more than the raid in Dartmouth. There was the following month when the location in Greenwood in the Annapolis Valley got hit.
Yeah, so September 21st was a really bad day. That morning, I was in a Dartmouth store, and I got notified on Facebook from someone sending me, I got a phone call actually from one of my friends in the Valley saying, I'm pretty sure that things are going down in Greenwood right now, and sent me a picture of the cop vehicles sitting there or whatever. So that was terrible. Luckily, this person is also an activist, and they stayed to film the event and whatnot. And when I saw that they were taking away, my volunteer and my staff in handcuffs, it broke my heart, because they didn't do that in the city raid at all. And in fact, they didn't even have handcuffs on my staff and volunteer when they raided the city at all. They just had them sit outside and be watched. So when I saw that they were taking away my staff, I knew that I had to go up and do whatever I could to try and help the situation. And when I got there, I was across the street with Debbie. My staff were already gone at this point to the police station. And we were just watching the cops as they were exiting the store, loading the goods onto the truck and whatnot. And that was when we witnessed yet another attack, we'll call it, from police on innocent bystanders. So my friend who was there that had been filming everything had been approached a couple different times by the police trying to tell him that he wasn't allowed to film them or he wasn't allowed to be on the property. All of the typical police lies that they tell you. So at one point while I was filming, and if they haven't deleted the video off my phone that they seized, then this is actually on there, and you can see Constable or Officer Slade run up to my friend's window, ram his arm through the open crack of the window, unlock the door, rip the door open, rip the phone out of his hand, and run back into the store and lock himself in the store with Buddy's phone. So they're not allowed to do that, but they did it, and we have proof of it. It's on my phone that we have. So while that was happening, I couldn't help my activist mouth and hollered across the street when I saw that yet another one of my people was in trouble, that I hope they have a warrant for that phone. And I don't know if they knew I was there before, or if they, I don't know, maybe that brought attention to me, whatever. either way, they definitely knew I was there then. So after they finished throwing all of our glass products into the back of their truck, their fancy new truck that they just acquired a couple weeks before, they came over, blocked in. I was actually rolling around with Debbie, the rebel there, and they pulled into the parking lot, blocked in her van, came over, demanded for her to show her license and registration, and then they proceeded to threaten to beat out the windows of her van if I didn't remove myself from it. So at that point, not looking to cause Debbie any grief or hardships or window replacements, I left her van and they proceeded to arrest me, and that was the beginning of a weekend-long vacation.
Wow, holy smokes.
Yeah.
It was quite the afternoon for sure.
I guess.
Quite the spectacle they put on for Greenwood, really.
Yeah, big time. And it's obvious, some dispensaries when, in Toronto when raids were going on, some people were questioning, the ownerships of them and, whether they were really respecting the staff as far as, helping them out or, having any real connection to them. And it's obvious, listening to you tonight, that, you care about your staff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody that I've brought on as a volunteer or as a paid employee, I treat them like family. And if they needed anything, not even short of helping them bury a body, there's a really good chance I would help them do that too. Mm-hmm. So, it was a second family for me.
Yeah.
And that was a feeling and a vibe that was picked up on instantly whenever you were at either one of the dispensaries with staff and volunteers, and even in your absence at the dispensaries, that was an overriding feeling and sentiment that I picked up on and was witness to.
Well, I told them, every single person who ever helped out with that store, I told them that I didn't care who walked through the door of that store. They're to be treated as if they are their favorite family member that they've ever had. And I don't care if they can't stand the person. Put a smile on your face and be nice, because you never know what people are going through when they're walking through that door. And it was our job to make sure that they felt better when they were leaving. So I really like to think that my staff and volunteers did a really good job of that. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have days, because we all have days. But
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, we all do.
At the end of it, we might fight, we might pick on each other, whatever. Maybe we're a little hateful one day when someone comes in, but you can bet that the next time you see that face, they're getting an apology for it and probably a big old dab for it. So, we really try our best there.
That's the ups and downs of any family, though, right?
I think so.
There's glitches and hitches, but hopefully by and large everybody gets along. And certainly, anytime I visited either one of the dispensaries, I always left feeling better, just for the general upbeat atmosphere that the staff created and that wonderful sense of caring about the well-being of patients that I witnessed time and time and time again. Coupled with all of the activities and events that you put on, and having a vapor lounge where patients could medicate and have a chance to chill with like-minded people who understood them.
One of the things that I absolutely loved the most about Greenwood was that there was this entire underground community there. And while you may have secretly known that Joe down the road smokes and grows or whatever, you never sat down and smoked with Joe, right? And having this central hub for all of these patients, and then they start seeing people that that they know, right? Then you build this sense of familiarity with it. And next thing you know, they're both sitting down in the lounge and they're sharing a joint together, which never would have happened. Or they're doing dabs, or they're meeting new people that, maybe they've seen them around the community but didn't know who they were. And there was this sense of trust and understanding and acceptance that came with it. And it was so beautiful to watch the entire community of Greenwood and the surrounding areas all come together and just share the healing powers of this wonderful plant. Like, it was so beautiful.
It certainly was an amazing experience, and I was happy to have been a part of it. And there's a huge part of me looking forward to the next chapter of you and Higher Living Wellness Center happening in the Valley, because I've got faith that it's going to happen.
Oh, something's going to happen, because there's too many people up there that were benefiting from what we were doing. And even if you remove the cannabis selling aspect of it, even just to be a center for people to go and acquire information, to meet other people, to sit down and learn things through our classes, or to go and have a Thanksgiving dinner party or a Halloween party and things like that. Like, that's exactly what we need as medical cannabis patients, because we've been outcasted from pretty much every aspect of our lives. And if you're one of the people who's lucky enough to be able to even hold a regular job, then that's a bonus, because most people in this community are disabled. They don't get out much. There's no support. Their doctors don't understand. Mental health is a joke. If you were in the military and now you're done, well, you're useless now too. So it was really a place for all these, and I'm not going to use this in a derogatory term at all, but all of these outcasted people to come and find themselves in a sense of acceptance. And what's more beautiful than that?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And you're right. That's what's been missing for far, far too long. I mean, even for me, a simple thing like being able to come once a week for yoga night is something I miss hugely. And would I wander off in mainstream and do a yoga night? Nah, I don't think so.
No.
But doing it at the lounge, being able to pause and medicate for a minute and laugh and joke in a comfortable, accepting environment, absolutely.
Yeah,
we used yoga lightly because I'm not sure what we were doing could actually be called yoga. It was more of
Hey, I did a ganja.
I'm calling it yoga.
I did a ganja yoga session. And it was so new back then, it ended up being part of a 2-page spread in the local newspaper.
We were... we had a nice little crew that gathered every Tuesday night at 6 for yoga, and there was a lot of laughing, so like it's already therapeutic right there. And then we did like a little bit of exercise too, so I mean, you couldn't go wrong. There was no charge to it, and it was a good time. It really was.
Yeah. Okay, let's go for break. Or should I wait? I'm just deciding here. I'm getting messages. All right, let's go for break, and then we'll pick up the conversation and see what's going on down the road with Higher Living Wellness. All right, it's break time, and let's go for break. Let's see. I had 3 songs I could have picked out for tonight for the bumpers, but I did pick out one. And tonight we're going to use the band Les Mosquitoes and the song Justice. I want to match the song to our guests, and that's how I've done here. So when we return, Deb and I will continue our talk with Heidi Chartrand. This is the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.net.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Power to the people, every soul is equal. Overcome the systems and rise above the evil. The poor keep getting stronger and the rich can't feed them.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reef Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarawana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca. Hi, this is Al Graham of the Pace Radio Show. Are you keeping pace, as in keeping people advocating cannabis education? If you're not, and you're a cannabis consumer, then why not? Others are working hard every day to help educate people about cannabis so you can enjoy your daily 420. Get involved and speak out. Be loud and proud so that you can keep pace. Tune into the Pace Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear about people advocating cannabis education here on lifestyleradio.ca.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Canadays, your friendly neighborhood Campbellford head shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Let us help you grow your 4 with weekly Tuesday night gardening sessions for beginners. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Canadays, more than just a head shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to the award-winning Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.net, or you can find us live at Spreaker, TuneIn Radio, but we prefer you to come to lifestyleradio.net. Today on the program, I have my joint host, Debbie Stutlz-Giffin, and our guest, Heidi Chartrand of Higher Living Wellness. Well, ladies, before the break, we were talking about Heidi's experience with the raids and what her staff went through and all that. Where are we going now? Deb?
Well, we talked about a great deal of what happened the day of the raid in Greenwood, and Heidi's alluded to the fact that she was in remand over that weekend.
Yes.
But I'll get you to take a few minutes, Heidi, as to elaborate as to why you were kept in Burnside for the weekend, because certainly out of what were there 7 other people who were arrested during the series of raids that happened that day, you were the only one who was detained and ultimately put in remand for the weekend.
Well, there was a lot of evil floating around that day, and I'm not really one for trusting the police. So when they were telling me they were going to let me go and all I had to do was sign this little form, I did mortgages for 6 years, so I don't sign anything without reading the fine print. And when he slid the form over to me to sign it, I noticed there was a little box that said that there was conditions attached was checked off. But he didn't tell me what those conditions were, so he was just trying to trick me into signing it. Now, while they may not be the smartest officers on the planet, they definitely were trying to trick me. And they did know that I had a second location that was up and running. So one of the conditions that they put on there was that I was not allowed to be in the presence of anyone who had cannabis on them that was not in possession of a medical cannabis license. Well, Nova Scotia has the highest number of cannabis smokers per capita in this country. And how am I supposed to know who was carrying cannabis on them and whether or not they had a license to do so if I'm out in public? It seemed absolutely ridiculous to me, and especially with October 17th coming up, where everybody was going to be allowed to possess cannabis legally, that condition didn't make sense. So that was
quite an infringement on one's privacy, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You'd have to ask everybody you walk by in the mall, hey, have you got any cannabis on you?
Do you have a license for it? Because I'm going to need to see that. That's just crazy. So one of the other conditions that they put on me was that I was not to be within 2 meters of any store that sold bongs, water pipes, etc. So that effectively meant that I couldn't walk into any corner store, any gas station, or most grocery stores, because a lot of them have the smoke shops right at the front entrance, and I don't know if they have bongs or pipes or whatever in there. And then most of the little corner stores around here have bongs for sale at the cash register, and so that one didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Plus, what if I needed a new medical device to consume my medical cannabis on? I'm not allowed to go purchase one now? So that condition didn't sit well with me either. But the major one for why I stayed at Chateau Burnside for the weekend was they had on there that I was not allowed to own or operate a cannabis dispensary. So the problem with that was, when I looked in their eyes while they're waiting for me to sign the paper, there was that glimmer of evil and that little sideways smirk. And I knew that if I put my pen to that paper and walked out the door, they were going to come and get me and bring me right back inside, because they knew that my Dartmouth location was still open. And there was no way that I could transfer ownership of that within the 3 seconds of signing the paper and walking out the door. So I wasn't really feeling playing their games for that. So I was asked 3 different times that night to sign the paper. Each time I declined until they agreed to change the conditions. They wouldn't change the conditions. So that was when I got to spend a lovely night at the Kingston RCMP detachment, and then 2 additional nights over at the Burnside Correctional Facility.
And they were hoping that this was going to force you to and punish you until you signed that paperwork.
Right. But I'm really stubborn, and I don't know if they did all of their research on me, because they really tried. The nice guy, the tough guy, like, come on, Heidi, we don't want you to go to Burnside, but I don't really care. I wasn't signing that paper, so I already knew in my head I was gone away for the weekend. So
And
It
how
was
were
just
you
getting through.
how were you treated at these locations?
At the Kingston RCMP detachment, the police officers, one of them was making fun of my food allergies there, like, oh, well, we don't have any of that on the menu tonight, do we? But at the time, I know they were thinking that I was only going to be there for about another hour and then leave, right?
Right, right.
It was absolutely disgusting in there. Like, the floor was, they took my shoes, my little flat ballet flats, and I had bare feet, and there was so much urine and stuff on the floor. Like, it was absolutely disgusting. Like, I only moved off the bench if I absolutely had to. And I actually ended up getting a skin infection from being in there, which spiraled out of control quite quickly. So it was good I got out Monday when I did, because I ended up having to see my doctor and get antibiotics and stuff to get that under control. So it very quickly could have become a life or death situation for me being in there.
Ah. And this is because of you were helping patients.
I was held in Kingston, and in there it was so dirty, and because I have several issues, but one of them is a low immune system, and I also have eczema, which spirals out of control quite quickly. So because my dogs had gotten into a little debate, we'll call it, and I ended up with a puncture wound. So when I was in there, I couldn't use any of their scented products because of my chemical sensitivities and environmental sensitivities. So I wasn't even able to cleanse the puncture wound that I had, and they had given me a dirty blanket in there, and because of my skin condition and the blanket supposedly being washed, I think they sprayed it with something, but whatever it was scented. So my skin broke out really bad from that. When I was in Burnside Correctional Facility, all they use in there is scented products for the laundry. So the whole time I was constantly forced to be surrounded by, literally with my clothes and everything, all of these constant allergens. So in the correctional facility, they did try to cater to my food sensitivities, but I didn't eat a whole lot in there just because most of what they sent would have not agreed with me at all.
Mm-hmm. I know the feeling. No, that's wow, brutal. So you got out on the Monday then?
Yeah, so Monday morning they transported me back up to Kentville Courthouse, and that was, I'm not going to lie, when I was in Burnside on the weekend, everybody wanted to know why I was in there. So as soon as I told them why, I ended up having like a circle of the women around me. Everybody's asking me questions about cannabis and stuff. So I got to educate all kinds of people. So to say that I didn't have a semi-enjoyable time would be a lie, because nothing makes me happier than educating people about cannabis in this fight. So when I got up to the law courts, I was there about an hour and a half before anybody else got there. I got up there for 8 in the morning. So I got to spend some time with the sheriffs there, and all of them were incredibly curious. Now, it turns out they actually had brought on extra guards that day, or extra sheriffs that day, and had implemented an entire plan in place for me. And I had no idea what was going on the outside, but I knew that the troops were being rallied because my people knew what was up. So they had to bring on all of these extra guards because apparently there was quite a crew that was assembling for me outside. So when I first got there, the sheriff had told me that, they had been on the Facebook, and it looked like that there was going to be 30 to 70 potential supporters show up for me. And I could tell by the look on her face that she was quite concerned if it was going to fall at the 70 end of that range. So she's like, do you think they'll all come, or do you think like maybe they'll just stay in bed? I said, I don't know. It's really hard to say. So the first few people started showing up, and then there was more, and then there was more, and I could see the corner of one of their security monitors, and at one point, the entire entryway was full of all of my people, so many of them that they had to ask some to step outside because the people who needed to get into court for court couldn't access the courtroom. So at the end of it, they figured there was close to 100 people that showed up, and I got to educate almost all of the sheriffs. Took turns because they'd leave one of them downstairs themselves, excuse me, to watch myself and the other two guys that were down there with me. And whichever one they left down there always ended up coming and talking to me at my cell about cannabis. So they all kept me entertained the whole time. I got to educate all of them, and there was a definite change of heart in the sheriffs and the way that my people were being treated on the other side after I got to, I call it Heidiing, after I got to Heidi some of the sheriffs, and there was definitely a turn in them, and we even noticed it this week too when I was in court. They were all super friendly with us. So
good.
Yeah, it was quite an experience going back again yesterday, and sheriffs recognizing some of us and speaking to us and wondering how we were and when you would be coming back again and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about any of the sheriffs there. They were all really, really, really great. Even the ones who kind of tried to keep their distance were a little bit friendly this time too, I noticed. So
it's an interesting observation because I'd been in Kentville Court fairly recently for court support for the bud tenders from Greenway, and they didn't have a metal detector there. And when I went through the door the day that you were being released, I commented on it like, well, what's this? This is new. And oh, well, yes, today's a little bit exceptional, and we're kind of thinking about keeping it here full time. And by the looks of things from yesterday, it is now a full-time fixture, but it was certainly
bring it out for my crew.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the crew out front that were medicating, and let me see, we had a pizza party at lunchtime because nobody wanted to go anywhere, so we ordered
songs.
There was the guitar. Melinda had her guitar there.
Oh,
she was
right on.
We had the megaphone. We had it was quite an atmosphere outside and an experience to be outside as well.
At one point, excuse me, one of the sheriffs that come downstairs, and she goes, that morning when they first brought me there, and it was just her and I talking, she said to me, Heidi, what's the first thing you're going to eat when you get out of here? And I said, bacon, and I'm not talking the kind I spent the time with on Friday. I want the real bacon, right? And she sort of laughed and then didn't know how to take it. And I think she thought I was just trying to be a smartass, but that wasn't the case. Like, bacon is my staple food. So at one point, they were supposed to take me up first, but because there was such a large crowd, they decided to put me up last. And hopefully the crowd would dwindle, except the crowd didn't really dwindle. We lost a handful of people, but the majority of them were still there. So at one point when she came downstairs, she goes, okay, your people know you, Heidi. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, they're out there talking about how they need to go get you your bag of bacon for when you get released. So it was quite a heartwarming experience to know that everybody was out there and concerned about me accessing bacon upon my immediate release.
And it also told the officer that you were being serious. You weren't being,
Absolutely. That's one thing that I pride myself on in this life is that I don't have time for the BS. I don't lie about things. I don't sugarcoat things, and love me or hate me, that's either your problem or like congratulations to you. I don't know what to tell anybody. What you see is what you get, and whether that's law enforcement or the sheriffs or Nana down the road that comes into the store. And I'm not saying I won't tone down the swearing at certain times. Like, I don't think I dropped any swear words on this show, but in
I'm proud.
In my everyday speaking, they typically show up in like every sentence. So, that's the only time that I ever, and the only way that I ever censor myself. So
you can control yourself. You've proven that. Okay, Deb, any more questions?
I think we've covered everything quite well as far as the raids and the court support. You were back in court again yesterday. If you'd like to bring people up to speed with that.
Yeah, and then after the break, we'll further that on. So we got 5 more minutes to break. So go ahead.
All right. So yesterday we were back in court, and it was initially for a plea, but we asked for an adjournment just so that we could get full disclosure and figure out what my plan is moving forward, if I'm going to self-represent or if I'm going to bring a lawyer into this. One of the things that I explained to the judge yesterday was that I was having a difficult time finding legal counsel here in Nova Scotia that I didn't have to educate on the case law that's already been put through the courts with regards to medical cannabis. And the look on her face kind of changed a little bit when I mentioned that. And at first I was kind of being looked at like, oh yes, here she is, no lawyer, right? But then when I explained why I didn't have a lawyer yet, and that I'd been speaking with one of the top cannabis lawyers, Jack Lloyd, out of Ontario, she kind of relaxed her face a little bit and granted an adjournment with no problem, and then initially wanted me there for 9:30. I actually interrupted her and didn't get in trouble and asked if we could do 1:30 instead, where I'm coming from the city, and she had absolutely no problems granting that in any way, shape, or form. So we're back for that on November 20th, and that's supposed to be for a plea or whatever, but I'm not sure what our plan of action is at this point moving forward yet.
Now, Jack was just involved in one, I believe, the Niagara Compassion Club here in Ontario. That I believe everything was dropped there. Would you be under sort of the same situation?
Absolutely. So the reason that these dispensaries are having their charges withdrawn or dropped or whatever fancy term they're using for it is because there is a void in the access that medical patients have. So the current program is not constitutional, and in the cases that have already gone through the courts, like the Smith decision and the Allard decision, it proves that there is a need for these places, and it also proves how we are protected when we're operating under the constitutional rights of medical patients. And at Higher Living Wellness Center, you had to have a medical cannabis card in order to access our services. So we believe that we were operating perfectly within the law because of the voids in access that are experienced in the ACMPR. And with, I believe there's 218 constitutional challenges happening right now across Canada, says an awful lot about the government's program.
I was blown away when I read that article from CBC and it mentioned the sheer volume of constitutional challenges. It was unreal.
Well,
but not surprising.
No, I was surprised that number was higher, given the amount of raids that have taken place since Dusty Boy got in power there. Because there's been an awful lot of raids, an awful lot of people charged, but at the end of the day, not everybody has the money to put forward to go through with a constitutional challenge. And if people had access to that, I think that these laws would have been changed a long time ago, but it's because people don't have the money to fight the government.
Yeah, no, I think John Conroy, he's involved in the case involving dispensaries. I don't know a lot about it or anything. But,
So basically all I know about that is that he's put forward an argument that dispensaries should have to exist. And if it goes through well, I think I read it could be binding right across Canada.
if it's in their top court in BC,
Yeah.
it makes it, no guarantees. But I know other cases in the past have, come out of the high courts in Ontario and BC that have ended up, helping other people in other provinces. So.
And unfortunately, like so many other aspects of the program that have slowly but surely changed a little here and a little bit there, I think the only way that things are going to truly pan down and become right and ethical and constitutional as far as our medical cannabis dispensaries go is through a court decision.
And unfortunately, so many people have to suffer in the meantime.
That's right. Oh, yeah. As some cannabis songs say, the question, what about the patients? Nobody ever, they're always worried about, they're not worried about the patients and where they're going to get their medicine from. So.
Well, and certainly people that we've been hearing from, sort of a collective I've heard from people. I know Heidi's heard from people. I know her staff and volunteers have heard from people. And it's not a pretty picture, Al. There were at least 3 people who'd committed suicide, and it was considered a direct result of the closure of dispensaries and a lack of access to affordable medicine.
That's that's not good.
I mean, that's absolutely horrendous. Our governments on all levels should hang their heads in shame right after they rectify this. It's just unacceptable, and we can pick up that torch a little bit further after the break that I sense you're just itching to move forward to, because it's just about that time.
It is that time. You're absolutely right, Deb. It is that
time. My inner
time.
mind reader here.
Okay, tonight's featured band for our bumpers is Lee Mosquito and their song Justice. When we return, Deb and I will continue the conversation with Heidi Chartrand. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.net.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Every soul is equal. Overcome the system and rise above the evil. The poor keep getting stronger and the rich can't feed the younger.
Man, have you been to Canadays yet? Canadays, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck and wholesaler Nexus. Canadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Canadays can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. Bridge Street West. Canadays. Have your say without saying a word. Canadays.ca.
Hey, it's Al Graham. Did you know that the nominations for the Canadian Cannabis Awards have been announced? Well, I'm delighted to say that for the second year in a row, the Pace Radio Show has been nominated for the top podcast. If you agree, Kim, Alicia, Debbie, as well as myself would appreciate and thank you if you went to CanadianCannabisAwards.com and voted for our program. You can find the Pace Radio Show in the top podcast category. And while you're there, you can also vote for Kim Cooper as a top influencer. Thank you for your vote, and thank you for the support. We really appreciate it.
This is Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper. Catch me on The Reefer Reporters, aired on lifestyleradio.net. Available for replay or download on Lifestyle Radio or Spreaker.
Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on lifestyleradio.net. Listen in until midnight every weekend as he spins your favorite reggae tunes, including the classics, from Butterfly's Passion, Bed and Breakfast Above Discovery Bay. DJ Passion makes you feel like you are on the island. Head to the land of sun, fun, and Ganja Weekly when you tune in Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to Reggae Saturday with DJ Passion, live here on lifestyleradio.net.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today, 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
Tuning in to the Pace Radio Show. Well, we're being broadcasted live here. You can always catch, the live shows. But if you can't catch the live show, you can always catch the podcast afterwards. And they're available at Shoutcast, Mixcloud, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Sonos, Google Play, iTunes, even over on Spotify. So you catch them all there. Tonight, we featured the music of Les Mosquitoes and the song Justice. These guys have a few cannabis-related songs. And if you search for them on YouTube, I'm sure that you will find them. Today on the program, we have our guest, Heidi Chartrand of Higher Living Wellness, and my joint host, Debbie Stutlz-Giffin, who's with the Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, also known as MOM. And MOM has a great court program. I wish more places had them.
We've had that in place for a number of years, and it actually originated with the late John Cook, who had the first Compassion Club, if you will, here in Nova Scotia. He was never fortunate enough to obtain a storefront dispensary, but I'm sure he'd be more than interested in what's going on these days as far as dispensary goes, if he were still with us, and be one of the leading voices for sure.
I agree.
Through the years, the program's moved on, and Chris Backers, as vice of MOM, has taken the lead in that, and we've been actively supporting patients who've gone to court because of their therapeutic cannabis use, and supporting dispensaries as well.
I'm sure many of those members were amongst those people who were standing out there for Heidi and crowding the entranceway.
Oh, absolutely. There were a number of MOM members there, as well as patients who frequent both of Heidi's, it's hard to use the word both because there's only one now, but what were two dispensaries and now one, and certainly the support from the Valley area is still strong, as was witnessed at court yesterday. I arrived with a van full of half a dozen people from the local area. So people are watching, paying attention, and I expect at Heidi's next court date, November 20th, there will be a large crowd again gathered out in front of the courthouse, and subsequent court dates and court actions that she's taking.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, Heidi, it sounds like there's lots of support down there for you, and because, like, I've gone to some places, some of the courts, and after some raids, or you just don't hear about crowds like what you're seeing down that end.
I think a lot of that. Sorry, it was cold. I think a lot of that has to do with the way we treated our patients there and the way that we did things at Higher Living. There aren't a lot of places where patients can go and congregate and use the products. Well, there are a lot of dispensaries, or were a lot of dispensaries around. There was nowhere for that social interaction. And because we provided the patients with a safe place that they could go and hang out and feel loved and medicated and comfortable and amongst their friends and family, I think that really shows through on the back end of this when it comes to support for myself and my staff in court.
Now, moving forward, like we've spent, we've gone over a lot of stuff here that's happened with the raids and all that. Moving forward, like, are you going to evolve? You almost sounded like you earlier that you may go along the lines of still assisting patients, maybe not having cannabis there or whatever, or as a dispensary, but still being involved with patients in some way as being a place for community to get together, educational purposes and just to socialize.
Yeah, so moving forward, the terms of my release were that they wouldn't change the one that I'm not allowed to own or operate a cannabis dispensary. Actually, I lied. They did change it. They elaborated on it. And the judge threw in her own words, stating how I couldn't be within 2 meters of any place known to be dispensing cannabis. So,
because a lot of those places, most of those places, she hadn't seen the word dispensary in the signage out front. So she wanted to make darn sure.
Yeah. So with that, the only way that I could still continue to provide the medical accessories, to provide the lounge, to provide the massage therapy and the acupuncture and the educational classes was if I agreed to remove all of the cannabis from my store. They would allow me to be in the store with the bongs and the pipes and those sorts of things. So our plan is to move forward with that, if nothing else. But we are going to apply for a bail variation hearing to try and get some of my conditions changed and get back in operation again. The very worst case situation, if they will not allow that to happen, then we're going to go for just the lounge, renting out the lounge, hosting the classes, and just be a center for information. Because right now, there are all kinds of people who are looking at trying cannabis for the first time now that it's legal, and they have no sweet clue what to do, where to go, how to even use it. So now we can open our doors up where it's legal for anybody to possess, and the general public can now come and sit in on our classes in the lounge, or they can rent the lounge and host their parties there. We also have taken on the Higher Living Church of Cannabis. So they actually are going to be doing regular services in our lounge where people can come and they can worship the healing powers of the plant together. So this isn't a religion where, if if you believe in the healing powers of this plant, you can't believe in Buddha or Allah or Jesus or whatever faith you come from originally, you can still keep that because we're non-judgmental there. And we're a bunch of people who are getting together to worship the healing powers of the plant. And during these get-togethers, they're going to be interactive. So we want to hear people's stories. So if the message of the day is about love and healing, then, you know, we'll chat with you for a little while, but then we want to hear from you and what helps you on your journey of love and healing and how cannabis has fit into that. So what I've noticed the most personally, my own experiences in going to the different dispensaries that had the lounges and whatnot was everybody has a story to tell, and everybody's story is so interesting and unique, and we all benefit from hearing it. And it doesn't matter whose story that you hear, you learn something.
Yeah, completely agree, 100%. That's
absolutely, yeah.
So many people get educated by patients telling their stories.
And speaking of the many uses of the lounge at Higher Living and patient stories, you had a patient do a press release there today, make an announcement and tell his story. And I'll get you to explain that to our listeners.
Sure. So many of you may have heard of Bob Dillman previously. He's been an activist for quite some time. Bob is very passionate about what he does, and he has a very unique way of taking on challenges. And that's one of the beauties of the medical cannabis community is all of us are angry and we're all coming at this fight from different angles, and we all have our own unique approach. And maybe if there's enough unique approaches, they'll start to listen. So Bob's message for today was that this is day 3 of a hunger strike that he has embarked on in support of a craft market, of medical dispensaries, of medical patients and their access. So Bob is really taking it, he leveled up, and he's taking it a step further and really trying to show the government officials, like, look, my options right now are to die because you won't give me access, or give me access and maybe I can live a half-decent life. But Bob has been, I guess, on the outskirts of the program for quite some time because of the lack of a family doctor, because of the lack of doctors here in Nova Scotia, period, and then just the different channels that are available for products.
And you know, some people would turn around and say, well, now that cannabis is legal, you know, Bob would just go to the legal retail stores and buy it. But it's much more than just that.
There's so much more than that. So the NSLC locations here have a 3% THC cap on them. So you can't go in and you can't get the full extract cannabis oil, the black, really tarry sort of stuff that you would get at your local dispensary. And the oils that you're getting from the NSLC are already diluted into a carrier oil. So somebody like me who has a prescription for 50 grams a day, where I consume the majority of that in oil form or use it topically, that would mean that I would have to spend, I think I worked it out the other day, it was like $2,100 and change a day just to get my daily quantity of oil that I could get from a local dispensary for, you know, depending on where I went and what kind of pricing they had, $55 to like $120. So that's a $2,000 a day savings for me personally from purchasing at the liquor store versus the local dispensary.
Exactly. And when it comes to growing, you know, the depending on what province you're in, you know, obviously you got the 4-plant limit federally, but if you're in Quebec and it was Manitoba, I believe, you can't even grow. So the program there wouldn't even be a benefit, and it's still only 4 plants, and the majority of the patients need more than 4 plants.
Exactly. 4 plants, it would mean if you had one of the plants growing in each life cycle stage so that you were constantly cropping out one of your plants, right? You better hope nothing happens to one of your other plants in one of the other cycles to throw everything off.
Then you got your possession limits, you've got your storage limits.
And in Nova Scotia, you're out of luck because you can't purchase a legal seed and you can't purchase a legal clone. And we've received absolutely no timeline as to when to expect anything along those lines. Newfoundland, I understand, have some clones available for $39.99 a piece.
$40 for a clone?
Uh-huh.
Well, it's better than what the licensed producers initially offered the medical cannabis patients. I believe it was $250 or something like that for 5 of them.
Yeah, there were some real lavish prices. I remember that. Yeah, you're right.
But we're also spoiled from years of $5 to $10.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
I can remember getting squirrely when they hit $10, going, "Oh my God!"
Oh yeah, well, cut and go $3. Seen those days.
and I'd like to mention on Bob's behalf that one of his dilemmas, as far as purchasing corporate cannabis, is the fact that it's been treated with one pesticide or another from this list of approved pesticides that Health Canada have supplied the licensed producers and then promptly proceed not to monitor, as we've recently found out in the media and certainly suspected for a good long while. It would simply be disastrous to his health to consume any of these products. And he's already compromised, so why would he want to?
Yeah, and they're not required to put that on the packaging label anywhere that pesticides were used on this product.
No. And supplying it to critically and chronically ill Canadians.
Not like yourself, Heidi, where your product didn't have that stuff done to it.
No, we got I'm going to go with all of our product for the flower from medicinal growers. So these people have been living with their grows for a while. They take extra time and effort in making sure that there are no chemicals or pesticides that are being used. Most of them grow organically, and they don't mind taking a couple weeks to flush out their plants to make sure that they're getting an optimal medical product because they're using it themselves. So,
Correct.
It's not like it's all about the money for them at all. For these medical patients, it's actually about their health and making sure that they're getting the best product possible that they can put in their bodies.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Okay, Deb, we got about 5 minutes, and we'll go to the shout-out.
Oh, I'm trying to think what we haven't touched on because we've been all over the place here.
Correct. Well, how about we've talked about Heidi and stuff and Bob's. Now, what about the other dispensaries? Like I'm seeing stuff on the news. They're still coming in and with this legalization and trying to shut down dispensaries down there.
Yeah, so they did a sweep the day that they raided our Greenwood store, and they closed 5 of them in the valley, all with similar conditions to mine, that they're not allowed to own or operate a dispensary type of deal. And then after that, I believe they hit 2 or 3 other places in the city. I haven't heard of any raids since then, but I'm not sure how much more money they could afford to blow on them back to back like that as well right now either. So
yeah,
there were also a number of dispensaries the Friday before legalization that voluntarily shuttered.
Yeah.
announced that they were done and walking away.
Yeah. So
because in Nova Scotia, there's also the possibility of heavy fines for staying open, anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 a day.
Yeah,
up to $100,000 for an organization.
Yeah, there's big fines here in Ontario as well, and some of the places have closed down, and there's still some places that are still operating, especially on our reserves. I know within an hour's drive of me, I've got a location, Tioga, where they've got anywhere to 40 to 50 dispensaries running a week.
And it's so disappointing. I mean, the government were told 16 years ago to legalize and legitimize dispensaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know right now they're advertising because Ontario, there's a shortage of cannabis here as far as, from the OCS end of things. And so, these locations are wide open and serving the public.
It's really sad that the Nova Scotia government is taking the steps that they are and causing all of these harms to the patients because it's completely not necessary. They made, I think it was just under $300,000 or something like that in their very first day of sales here. So, and that's not all medical patients. Those are the rec market. So they still probably would have made that even if the 2% of medical cannabis patients hadn't jumped in line that day.
Yeah.
And there were patients in line that day who had membership in at least one of the local dispensaries. Someone reported on Facebook that I believe the second day he was coming out of the cannabis outlet portion of the liquor store and looked across and saw a lady sitting in a wheelchair crying. And he went to speak with her, and her concern was that by the time she got to that golden door and got inside, that the one strain that possibly might help her with her pain would be depleted because the lineups were that insane.
And would she even be able to get into it with all the packaging that this stuff kind of come with?
Right? That was one of my concerns, as well, with the NSLC locations and people saying, oh, well, why don't they just go there? Well, us sick people can't stand out in the cold for 2 hours waiting to maybe be able to access something that we can't see or smell before we get it. And there's been all kinds of videos that have come up online where people are doing the big reveal and they're showing you them opening up their packages from the NSLC location, and the joints that are supposed to be a gram are weighing up short, or the 3.5 grams that was supposed to be in your jar that's sealed is coming up, 0.2, 0.3 shy. There was one that was over that I saw out of all of the videos. So, it's not fair or reasonable access, and it's certainly not a replacement for what the local dispensaries are offering to these sick patients.
Oh, no.
Well, and the ridiculous part here in Nova Scotia is that there's only one outlet that's completely cannabis and no alcohol, and it's because it's a building all by itself. The rest of the outlets are in malls, and the fear was that if cannabis were in open jars, that it could be smelled in the alcohol portion of the store, and the people going in to buy their booze would be offended. And it was humorous, actually. On October 17th, I was involved with a protest in New Minas in the Annapolis Valley, out in front of one of the outlets, and we were protesting lack of patient access. But going through the doors of the mall and standing back, there was a semicircle outside of the door, primarily older people, standing around with their hands in their pockets, watching the phenomenon of this lineup of people snaking around the store to go in and buy their cannabis. And they stood there, it was just like they were watching TV. There was a store on one side of the door, came out, rushed out, and took a picture of a patient who was holding a sign to the effect of the Cannabis Act has made my life harder. And yet and she was going, right on, I support you, man. But yet on the other side of the door was a hair product place. They were absolutely freaking out because their bottles of hairspray and conditioner and shampoo were going to end up smelling like skunk.
Oh.
So
Wow.
it was just, it was quite an experience to see all of that. That's my big memory of the whole day was sort of that phenomenon of the shock and the awe and people just soaking it all up.
Yeah. Brutal. Well, Heidi, is there anything else we could touch on tonight about what's going on at your end? You're still offering the massage stuff and all that at the business?
Oh, yeah, we still do all of those things. Our retail store is still open. The lounge is still open. We actually have a puff and paint night coming up.
Paint. All right.
On Saturday. So we're going to have some pumpkins available for people to come hang out with us and paint them if they're feeling like hanging out, want that family event feel.
Yeah, I understand. I think I heard our producer, Al Rapp, say that Ganjanistas in Hamilton was going to do puff and paint as well. I think they're planning to do stuff like that. And that's good.
We did one of them out in Greenwood that went over really well. And we had one of our local patient tattoo artists come in. They drew up a picture, and then we all kind of did our own take on the picture. So it wasn't like paint a red line here, because I mean, we don't follow directions very well. So, like I said, all of us are so unique. We all just put our own spin on them. So it was really cool to see the finished product at the end of it, and all the amazing creation. So
what's the province's laws when it comes to the lounges? Like here in Ontario, it's still an ongoing thing. Lounges are operating, but there's still nothing concrete yet.
Yeah, same here, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because like here in Ontario, we're going to be able to consume publicly, wherever tobacco is allowed. So basically, like, what's going to happen at your end when it comes to patients if there's no lounge? Can you guys smoke publicly down there?
No, not really. So, I mean, technically, yes, under your charter rights, you can access your meds anytime you need to.
Correct, yeah.
However, that doesn't mean that you won't get, a hard time from the bylaw officers or one of the 200 people who called in to report people smoking on city property to 311. So, as far as patients go, we have constitutional rights that we've already won in court, as far as I'm concerned. That's not saying that the city won't come and give me a hard time, because I fully suspect that will be the next angle that they take on the places around. But hopefully they just leave us alone and, move on. Maybe they should go smoke a joint or something and find out that it's not, this...
Well, if they may be under that 28-day separation between consumption and duty. It may take them a month to become fit. All right. Debbie, have you got any more questions for Heidi, or shall we wrap things up?
Well, I'd just like to throw out one fun fact. that I do believe Higher Living Wellness Center in Dartmouth was the first dispensary and or organization in Canada to host a bud crawl.
Oh, we totally were.
Oh, how was that?
It was amazing, and I really wanted to do it again this year, but with the way that legalization was going, it was funny because we were going to plan it for the end of September, but something kept telling me, don't. And it's so funny because we got rated the 21st, which meant that we wouldn't have been able to participate in our own bud crawl. But when we hosted it last year, I believe it was in July, maybe June, May, I can't remember. It was in the summer anyways. It was a huge hit. So we basically rented 2 tour buses and took a bunch of patients around to the different dispensaries that were here in town. So they got to go and get exclusive deals at each of these places that nobody else that day could get. And it was a really, really, really great time. And there was a lot of interest for it again this year, but there was just too much uncertainty taking place with the local stores to be able. I didn't feel right taking their money for something that I wasn't sure we were going to be able to pull off.
Next year's a different year.
That's right.
That's right. It's all new again. Alrighty. Well, let's go to the shout-out time then. Heidi, have you got person, place, a thing, website, where somebody can get a hold of you if you want to let them know that, so on and so forth?
Sure. So first I wanted to do just 2 quick little shout-outs. One to Chris Ends at the Pharmacist, who's been helping me quite a bit on this legal battle and whatnot. And the other is to one of our cannabis lawyers who is currently battling cancer in the hospital right now, who, understands and appreciates the values of dispensaries, and that's Cole Peach. And he just actually won favorite musician, I believe it was, for the Social Shore in Nova Scotia. So if anybody is looking to get a hold of us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at 902 Higher Living. And then we also have our own radio show as well, which is Higher Living Wellness Radio. We have the Hippie Lloyd Show and the Green Room.
Nice.
So you can find both of those on Facebook as well.
Good. Deb?
Well, I'd like to thank Heidi for joining us and being our guest this evening. It's always a pleasure to chat. I'd like to refer folks to the Facebook page Justice for Bob Dillman, where any updates about Bob's situation, hopefully any progress he might make in hearing with a politician, will be posted. All of the news articles, media reports will be posted there. So if anyone would like to keep appraised of his situation, that's how you can do it. And you can also find us at www.mumm.ca or the Maritimers Unite for Medical Marijuana on Facebook.
Super. Thank you very much. That's right.
And one last thing.
Go ahead.
Anyone listening from the East Coast, on behalf of the Court Support Initiative Program, we hope to have representatives in Provincial Truro Court on Monday morning at 9:30 in support of Matt Forshner, who's there having worked as a bud tender in a dispensary in Truro that was raided.
Good.
He'll be there for election and plea.
Yeah. And you guys have done a great job with your court support program, and I'm sure that there'll be many will show.
Well, I think my trunk now has become a permanent home to many protest signs, and I expect that Chris Backers is pretty much the same.
You got a bus? You're gonna go from a van to a bus?
We've both got minivans.
Well, you can trailers. Put the signs in the trailer and get more bodies in. Okay, all I'm going to do, just a quick shout out to let everybody know that this week is the closing of the Canadian Cannabis Awards. The Pace Radio Show has been nominated for Top Podcasts. And if you want to vote, it has to be done by Friday. And this is our last show before then, so I thought I'd mention something. Other than that, I will be back next week with my joint host, Kim Cooper, and her special guest. As well, you can catch the Pace Radio Show. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and you can catch us online at pace-online.ca. Thank yous go to our sponsors, the friendly and helpful folks at CC Nexus. They're Canada's largest cannabis seed bank, found at ccnexus.global. And yes, they remain open. To Canada Days for all their support and a place to help educate the public. Al Rapp, the man with the baggie and the Shatterizer in his other hand. Plus a big thank you to our guest, Heidi Chartrand of Higher Living Wellness. Thank you for coming on the show, Heidi. We really appreciate you sharing your story and talking to us for our guests.
Thank you for having me. I really had a great time.
Thank you. And to you, Deb, as always, thank you for coming on the program and helping to spread the word on what's happening on the East Coast of Canada.
Always my pleasure to represent, Al.
And thank you to our listeners. Thank you for tuning into the program. And good night.
Good night.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.